Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Welcome to Financial Issues. Thanks for tuning in today. Hey folks, today is the last day of our year-end campaign. For all of you who have given, we appreciate it so much. For those of you who have yet to give, we just ask that you prayerfully consider that on the last day, because Financial Issues is a ministry that helps to educate people about financial issues from a biblical worldview. So we teach people about stewardship because we believe that God owns everything. Our time, our talent, and treasure are all gifts from God, and they come with responsibility. So we will be judged one day on how we handle that time, talent, and treasure. And our goal, our mission at Financial Issues is to help you be found a good and faithful steward. So we do that by defunding darkness. We call our biblically responsible investment strategy a way to defund darkness. So number one is a conviction of the heart, and it encourages you to honor God. We're to honor God in all areas of our lives, especially as it relates to our money. So if we can make that decision to honor God and to not buy shares of stock of companies that are funding the garbage in this world, the things that as Christians we're praying against every day: abortion, pornography, the LGBTQ lie that is being propagated against our country and even our most vulnerable, our young, human rights violations, and so many other things that would just grieve the heart of the Lord. So we don't want to use God's money to support agendas that are evil. So we help you to avoid that, to screen out those companies who are doing that. We put together a easy-to-use strategy. It is a do-it-yourself strategy, but it is very easy to use. We have lots of videos on the website to teach you how to do it. We make it simple and straightforward. We give you an asset allocation model. We give you a buy list, and we teach you how to use it. We alert you of any sales that you might need to make, and it's just $132 a year. If you compare that to a lot of the other investing clubs that are out there, I think that you're going to find that this is the best bang for your buck. And we're going to talk about things that nobody else is talking about, like screening out those companies. Our second mission is to fund the light. So to remind you that everything belongs to the Lord, that we are called to be obedient, joyful, and generous givers, because that's how the kingdom of light is funded. It takes money to fund good. It takes money to fund evil. So we want to be funding the good. So we give you opportunities. We give you ministries that we trust, that you can support. We are a ministry ourselves. We are supported by our partners and our listeners, so we can encourage you to give there. But we just encourage you to be obedient and to give and to ask God, because He will answer. He will hear you, and He will answer. So on today's show, we're going to really be giving our final push for the year-end campaign. We're also going to be answering some of your financial questions. So we will be delivering to you the same great financial content that we do on a regular basis. Our stewardship verse today comes from Philippians 1:6. And I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. So sometimes I think I know what God is up to. Other times I don't have a clue until I have the hindsight. Whether I have a clue or not, God can be trusted to bring his plans to completion. You know, I bet Paul, when he wrote this, probably had to circle back to God when he found himself sitting in jail and asked God, what happened? What happened, God? I thought I was supposed to be out there preaching the gospel to the world. Now all I have to minister to are these hard-hearted Roman heathens in this piece of paper, in this pen, just to write some quote-unquote letters that might not even make it out of here or to the intended targets. So, little did he know, maybe he did, but I'm supposing that he didn't know that his letters would make it to their intended targets and reach into the future and impact generations, even to us today. So we can relax, we can rest in the knowledge that God initiates any good work that we might do. He motivates us and energizes us to begin the work and to continue that work to completion. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, it's great, Shana. You know, the future is a scary thing. It really is, especially when we live in times such as this, evil times for sure, ruled by evil men. But verses like this should fill us with hope, and it should fill us with all the hope we need. So no matter what happens here, we know that God, who began the good work of making us more like him, which is what Paul is talking about here, will bring that to completion. That we're guaranteed. Whatever happens here, we know that is a great outcome and great news indeed. And so speaking of looking into the future, Shana, kind of brings up the topic of, as we're closing our campaign today, sort of looking to the future of the biblically responsible investing movement as a whole. Could you remind our listeners of the success we've seen already? You know, I think sometimes it's easy to take a doom and gloom approach to this, but we got to realize we've seen great strides in this movement. How should this encourage us?
Yeah, this movement is not new. I mean, it was initiated some, 30 years ago. The Timothy Plan was one of the pioneers in the biblically responsible movement. Dan started this ministry 25 or 26 years ago.
It might be 27, 28. We're only a couple years younger than Timothy Plan. I think we're 27. So
all right. So, So long time coming. We, of course, have picked up the mantle and continue to run with it. But, I don't think the biblically responsible investing movement can take full responsibility even for what we've seen lately. So we've seen some great successes. We saw Tractor Supply, we saw Lowe's, and even Microsoft repent or partially repent from some of the things that they were doing, especially when it comes to supporting the LGBTQ movement. They've decided just to focus on what they do, what their core business is, and forget about the culture war, to just, focus their resources on being the best, retail sales organizations or technology company. Microsoft has not totally repented, by the way. They're still doing a lot of garbage, but at least they're kind of backing off of their DEI movement. But, in fact, the impetus lately seems to have come from some other unlikely sources. So, there's this guy, Robbie Starbuck, that is on YouTube, and he did a lot of these exposés, and it was shortly after those exposés that these companies did that. Now, we were prepared. We were doing our own work. We were putting together our own petitions to the companies, and we've done that a lot over the years. Dan had a lot of great conversations with a lot of companies that would waver. They would be on, then they would be off, and so it's been a long struggle. But you know what? The message is the same. It's whether it's coming from us or the Timothy Plan or some of the other folks out there that are in the biblically responsible movement. The message is the same. Corporate America, quit funding garbage. Just do what you do. At the end of the day, it is really the Lord. The Lord is the one that gets credit for bringing about the change through his people. And we are humbled and blessed to be part of that.
Yeah, that's awesome, Shana. Now for what you expect for the future, what do you expect on the horizon for the future of this movement? Understanding, as you say this with our investments, past performance is not a guarantee of future results. We can apply that here too. But what do you expect?
Yeah, so I think God works through his people. And, when he touched my heart, convicted my heart of biblically responsible investing, the small vision that I saw was to be able to redeem $100 million out of the kingdom of darkness into biblically responsible investing that was, committing to stop funding that garbage. Now there are others who are calling for $1 trillion to be redeemed, which is still even a drop in the bucket towards the, some of the numbers that I've heard, $12 trillion that committed Christians have invested. And, for the whole BRI movement, there's less than $1 trillion that's invested biblically responsibly. So we've got a lot of work to do. The culture won't change until hearts are changed. And God does that one person at a time.
Well said, Shana. And then why, again, do we need biblically responsible investing, especially in this time we live in our nation?
Well, I think it's one way that helps to bring about the change in the culture. Our culture has fallen away from God. This country was founded on Christian principles, and we've slowly seen that drift, as it is with just the heart of humanity. You read the Bible and you see this cycle of, God's people in Israel. They honored God, they prospered, they fell, they started, doing things that were detestable in the sight of God. They suffered the consequences, they repented, and it was all over again. But, God is using a remnant to do something big, and God uses money to turn our hearts towards Him. And we often want money for what it can do for us, to get us things that we think will make us happier, safer, and more prosperous. So we're very focused on our money, and when God uses people to minister through the use of our money, I think that can be very successful. Well, folks, we've got to take a break. We hope that you're going to stick with us. We're going to get to some of your questions coming up here very shortly. I'm your host, Shana Birch. Stay tuned. We've got more financial issues to come.
On the day I found I was pregnant, I was full of emotions, and I just was so overwhelmed, and I don't know if I'm ready for this huge, life-altering, changing commitment. I had individuals around me not wanting me to have this child. And somehow, I was driving and I saw the Women's Help Center sign, and I immediately turned in. That just took relief off of me, and I was like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. They gave me the confidence and the support that I needed to be able to go out and face the world. First time I held Finnegan, I just lit up with joy. I was so excited. This little boy that I had in my life, he is loving and generous. Watching him just grow and flourish into this incredible human being has just been so rewarding and so uplifting. Looking back, I don't know what I would do without him, because I needed him more than I think he needed me.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everyone. Shana, thank you for those words of encouragement there in that last segment. Let's get now to some partner questions. We got a lot of questions here, starting with Dan. Dan is in the 45 to 55 investment model, and Shana, he is asking about a couple of positions. He's got FI36 is a sell. It gives a sell or trade option. Should I just sell it or trade it for a replacement? And then he has a second question about TM68. You want to answer his question about FI36 first?
Yeah, so the quick answer is that it's a sell, because it is a Fidelity fund. It was one that we considered to be biblically responsible because it didn't invest in stock, so it didn't need really screening a lot. It was just government securities, if I'm thinking about the right one. But we don't have any other Fidelity funds on our platform, so there's nothing you can exchange into.
Yep, good stuff. And then the next question is about TM68. Says mutual funds. What do we code this as on the tracker? He says, I don't see a mutual fund in the dropdown. What do you think?
So that's going to be a fixed income. So if you look at your asset allocation model, that is, it's not specifically on the asset allocation model, but if you read the verbiage where it talks about how to split up your fixed income category, that is included there in the fixed income part. So I would code it as fixed income.
Great. Nice, Shana. Next one's Walt, 59 years old. He's asking about I-bonds. Are I-bonds still a good investment, or have they fallen out of favor? If they're no longer recommended, would you please explain why? And should I sell the I-bonds I have in my portfolio, or should I just hold on to them?
So that was something that we kind of capitalized on temporarily when inflation was high. So I-bonds, the interest rate on I-bonds are tied to the rate of inflation. So inflation got up to 9%. I-bonds represented a good opportunity. So yeah, I guess you could say they've kind of fallen out of favor because, as we're being told, inflation is falling. So is the rate on the I-bonds. So there are better. We did send out an alert. I don't know the date on this, but it's been a while back. Either that or it was in the commentary, but I believe that we gave kind of an explanation there, which is basically what I just said.
Yeah, good stuff. So then, Shana, should Walt get rid of the ones that he has, or should he just hold on to them, you think?
I mean, you could hold on to them, but I wouldn't expect anything spectacular out of them. I would rather see the money redeployed into some things that are currently on the buy list for fixed income.
Yep, great stuff. John is up next. Shana, 56 years old. He's saying, I see all the short, intermediate, and long-term bonds are a sell. And so on the asset allocation model for my age group, does that mean for all of my investments under the fixed income preferred section should all be preferred stocks and should include no bonds at all? I apologize for a potentially obvious question. What do you have for John there, Shana?
No, so all of the fixed income investments are not a sell. Only some of them are. There are still some fixed income investments that are on the buy list, specifically 2 of the Timothy fixed income funds that are still in the model and on the buy list. So you could use those to make up your fixed income allocation. You can use seed. You probably, if you have built a ladder, you probably still have some CDs. You shouldn't get rid of them. You should wait for them to come due because you probably have some pretty decent rates on those. Preferreds can be included. I would not suggest, unless you have a really good understanding of how preferreds work, I would not suggest making your whole fixed income allocation preferreds, but rather, having a few of the things that are on the buy list for fixed income.
Awesome. Next one, Shana, is Peter. Interesting question here. I'd be curious to hear your answer. He says, my home mortgage of $350,000 is at a 6.99% interest rate. We bought the home 3 to 4 months ago. Does it make sense to refinance? Now, Shana, interest rates are down slightly. Peter's 62. What would you have for him?
Maybe not yet. So I don't know what kind of interest rate you could get. Typically, kind of the rule of thumb is that once interest rates come down by a whole percentage point, then it tends to make sense because you can kind of cover your cost. There is a cost to refinance. I probably would wait because I think mortgage rates are most likely going to fall some more. And then, every time that you do refinance, you're subject to all of those closing costs. What I would suggest, though, I know the local credit union that I use, we're actually building a home right now, and we have in our construction loan that's going to convert to a permanent loan, we have a rate lock solution or a rate lock guarantee, a rate drop solution, I believe is what it's called. Anyway, the way that it works is that in the first 3 years, they will just adjust our mortgage rate down one time without any closing cost. So you may want to check around to some credit unions, some local institutions, and see if they have any kind of solutions like that.
That's good stuff, Shana. Thank you for that. It does bring to mind kind of a follow-up question for me as well. I know a lot of people are in a position right now where they've been in their home 5, 6, 7 years. They've seen it double in value, for example, and wondering, again, is it time to move or is it better to stay put? Do you have any insight for that?
I mean, most of that is going to just depend on your, the needs of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, some people might take a job across the country. You might move to Texas.
Yeah, right. That's right. Conservative, good Texas.
that might necessitate that you put your home on the market and sell it. So, I wouldn't. I don't think most people make decisions about moving just because of interest rates or home values, but. So I think it more comes from a lifestyle value. The other thing that I was going to say on Peter's question as well, since it's been such a short period of time since you bought your home, when you go to refinance, if it's not with the same financial institution, make sure you let them know that. They may be willing to use the existing survey that you have, or they may be willing to use the maybe not the appraisal, but they might be able to use some of those things, and that would maybe save you a little bit of cost.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you for that, Shana. Jana is up next here, not a current partner, has been a member previously, couldn't quite figure it out, but she still listens to us on CSN in the evening, actually. Cool stuff there, Jana. That's good. Considering becoming a member again, so we do hope that you would do that, Jana. But she's asking to get out of Franklin, at least not reinvest, as ESG issues and other concerns. There's a kind of a discount that's happening there that's concerning her as well. She's wondering, how do I deal with capital gains and where else to invest other than in a money market?
So I'm going to make an assumption here that she doesn't have the money invested in an IRA, because if it's in an IRA or a Roth account, you don't have to worry about the capital gains. You can just, open an account somewhere else and then do just a transfer. That's a non-reportable event to the IRS. So there's no tax consequences there. And you can, anything that happens inside your IRA is deferred. Taxes are deferred until you take the money out later, and it's all tax. So there's not capital gains tax. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure about the names that she mentions there, but she does say that she has, it appears to me as what she's saying is that her current advisor is discounting her conviction to be biblically responsible, trying to talk her out of it. And just, when I hear things like that, Dan's words burn in my ears as he used to tell people, don't ever let a financial advisor talk you out of your conviction to steal, the blessing that you may have from being biblically responsible. So, we're each responsible to respond to God in the way that He's convicting our hearts. And, He may be convicting everybody to do biblically responsible investing. Some people may just be resisting, but, don't let someone talk you out of your conviction to be biblically responsible, because I can assure you that God will help you with those plans. As far as financial or capital gains go, if you have capital gains, that is a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice. If you're going to have to pay taxes on your investments to take them out of the kingdom of darkness and move them into the kingdom of light, that is a sacrifice that I do believe that God will honor, whether it's financially or not. But there are strategic ways that you can do it. So you could spread it out over different tax years. Now, if you can manage to stay in the 12% tax bracket, the capital gains rate is 0%. So that may be one way of doing it. You may do a little bit this year. You may do a little bit in January. We're really close to the end of the year. If you can get it all done between those tax years, that's great. If you maybe have to extend it to the next year, God knows your heart. He knows the intent of your heart. So if there's a smart way of doing it and keep Uncle Sam out of it, that would be a great thing. You may also have, didn't say, I don't think how old she is here, but, you may be doing some giving with cash. And if you're doing giving with cash, you could switch over. This may not take care of all of your problem, but it could certainly help. You could gift your shares of appreciated stock rather than your cash, as long as the ministry that you're giving to does accept that. I would think that most places do. It's very, very easy to do. They just have to have a brokerage account, and then you contact them. You get their account number and routing DTC number, and then you just contact your brokerage, and then they electronically send those shares over, and then you use the cash that you were going to use to do your giving, use that to replenish your portfolio. And then, of course, there's more in-depth planned giving. And by the way, if you donate to our ministry this month, today's the last day of our year-end campaign. As a token of our appreciation, we're going to send you a PDF which outlines some really out-of-the-box thinking kind of strategies for planned giving. And some of these could even potentially help you with your issue of trying to get biblically responsible and minimize your capital gains.
Awesome, Shana. Well, as we close up this segment here and close up our campaign today, what final words of encouragement would you give our listeners as we close the book on this fiscal year and look to the next one?
Yeah. Well, I would just encourage you, don't bury all your treasure. Remember the the story of the talents and, about that steward that buried his talent and the scathing response that he got from the master. Don't bury your treasure for the future that might not even come. You might be planning for retirement and Lord may come back before you actually reach it. And don't eat your seed. So I encourage you to deploy the resources that God has given you as he directs you, and just ask him if he would have you sprinkle some of that seed on this ministry. We can commit to you that we will submit to the Lord's leadership as we nurture and water and fertilize that seed so that we can increase the volume of this megaphone of financial issues and point it in whichever direction the Lord has us pointed. And we will continue to consider ourselves a mouthpiece for the Lord, for the word of the Lord to go out, because it never returns void. Well, folks, if you listen on a station that only carries the 30-minute version of the show, we bid you a farewell today. If you want to catch the full show, go to financialissues.org/live or get our phone app for free. For the rest of you, we'll be back right after this break.
It's easy to get caught up in the rush and forget about what really matters. Too often, we invest in stocks without knowing what they stand for. When your investments align with your values, your money speaks for you, because biblical values matter, even when investing. Learn how to invest biblically and responsibly. Visit financialissues.org to learn more. That's financialissues.org.
Hi, this is Shana Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
Remember the good old days when companies stuck to just selling their products rather than using their profits to push an agenda? When you invest in a company, you become an owner of that company. And more businesses are now using your money to fund woke projects. We're called to be good stewards of all we have, and that includes ensuring your investments align with your biblical values. Thankfully, that's where Financial Issues can help. For over 25 years, Financial Issues has stood as a leader of biblically responsible investing, encouraging the body of Christ to keep funds out of companies that dishonor God. We provide Christian investors with the tools they need to build fiscally and biblically responsible portfolios. We're at the forefront of the fight, helping you not only with your finances, but advocating for truth and godly wisdom. For more information, go to financialissues.org. That's financialissues.org.
I'm John.
I'm Debbie, and we're Samaritan members.
We have 8 children, ages from 30 down to 15, and we have a ministry called Family Man Ministries.
When he left the pastorate to start the ministry, we had no income for about a year potentially, and so we were living on almost nothing. The cost of healthcare seemed impossible because we had a big family. And so when I started researching ministries, there was no comparison. It was just the best deal. And so a year after we joined, my 10-year-old daughter at the time got pneumonia, and it was scary. Someone sent a card just to Maggie, and it said, not just that we're praying for you, but that God will always take care of you, and here's $5 for you to go out and get ice cream. It was just really special.
To make that connection, that's an amazing thing. I was sold on Samaritan Ministries. I just thought, okay, I'm a part of this.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Great to see you this morning. September 30th, end of the third quarter of the fiscal year, and of course, end of our fiscal year as well here at the ministry. So thanks for joining us. Hey, the phone lines are open, by the way. 610-363-1110 is the number if you want to call in. I did want to just mention that campaign one more time, folks, and tell you all thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts here at the ministry for all the money that you have raised for us this year. We've raised roughly $100,000 so far, which is excellent. Of course, we're halfway to our $2,000 goal, so there's still time. There's still right now about, what time is it, 9:35 Eastern time? You've got about 15 hours or so before 11:59 tonight to be able to give to our Compounding Impact campaign. But so far, boy, $100,000 raised. We've got 15 new monthly soldiers, which is just amazing. That beat our total last year of monthly soldiers, so we're praising the Lord for all of it. We just want to thank you all so much. And I do want to mention as well, you heard Shana talk about this planned giving PDF. This is a really cool thing that we're giving out to anyone who is a monthly soldier or a first-time giver of the ministry. So if you are if you are donating to us this month, keep in mind, this is specifically for donors, so this is specifically for our campaign. So if you want to get your hands on this, there's still time to give. You can give as the Lord leads, as much as He leads you to give, and you'll get on that email list. This will be sent out via email later on this month, but it's a really, really cool document that we're putting together with Shana's help, of course, a planned giving PDF. The way to get your hands on it is to give to FISM today. If you've already given, congratulations, you're locked into that gift, which is great. And those of you who haven't, again, there's still time. Financialissues.org/impact. Financialissues.org/impact. Let's see if we can make a big dent today, folks, and get closer to that $200,000 goal. Regardless of whether we do or not, we are praising the Lord. So thank you all so much for those of you who have given, and if you've prayed and if you've shared the ministry and supported and encouraged us, thank you. Can't do what we do without you folks. So we're going to keep on moving forward together. That's great stuff. I have some great news as well, everyone. It's mixed in with some sad news. As you all heard on Friday, we officially closed the book on FISM News on Friday. So we aired our last show ever on Friday evening, but there was something really cool that came out of that. As you all know, we had to let some of our staff members go, but one of the staff members we did not have to let go is Samuel Case, the face of FISM News. So Sam is changing his role a little bit. He's going to be joining Financial Issues, doing some of the things that he did before for FISM News. He's now going to be doing for Financial Issues, but you'll all hear Sam much more on the show here. We'll do some back and forth from time to time. So Sam, officially, welcome back to the show. It's not really welcome to the show because you were in various roles in Financial Issues in the old days when Dan was on, but welcome back, brother. It's good to have you back.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back. It's kind of surreal. Things are really coming full circle because I first started on Financial Issues doing exactly this kind of things. I'm running titles today, so I said, hey, this is actually the very first thing I did. So it's kind of odd, but it is exciting to be back in the booth behind the scenes and working on these types of things. It's really exciting and a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. And you know, it is cool for me. If you folks have been with our ministry for a long time, you've heard me and Sam together in various roles. We used to host the news together, back in the old days, it was Ian and Sam, and then I would jump in from time to time and do the news show with Sam. And then there was even a brief time where Sam and I hosted Financial Issues together. This was right after Dan went into the hospital, and so we would come on Fridays from time to time. So it's a joy to get to do this with Sam in a more kind of permanent way. So Sam, I'm excited, brother. We're going to have some fun.
Yeah, the Sam and Seth Power Hour.
That's right. That's exactly right.
You forgot to tell everyone too. The whole reason you did the news is because I didn't want to touch the sports segment. There you go. I said, hey, someone has to do it. Seth, you can do it. Get out there. I don't want to have to do this.
I was the guy. That could be a compliment. It could also be an underhanded back-end compliment because that was all I knew how to do was sports. That's good. Well, Sam, welcome, brother. And hey, part of Sam's role is also going to be kind of giving us some economic headlines. There's a big one. Sam, you want to give us the update on what's going on with that potentially disastrous dock worker situation?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm sure that some people in our audience are aware of what's going on here, but it is really quite scary because we're already dealing with inflation. We've had some supply chain issues in the past. This is really going to make all of that seem like a drop in the bucket because right now almost 50,000 dock workers at 36 ports on the East and Gulf Coast Coast. They're set tonight at midnight to go on strike. That's going to really threaten the economy. The International Longshoremen's Association is demanding higher wages and protections against automation. So really typical type of union negotiation here. But the problem with this, why this is such a big deal, is these strikes have the potential to affect everything from bananas and coffee to even more essential things like pharmaceuticals and even some car parts. I mean, if you ask me, coffee is essential too, but we definitely want the drugs more. That's probably more important. Almost 50% of total containerized goods entering the entire country come through these affected ports. So it's estimated that just one day of this striking could take about a week to fix. So you can imagine, and it's also going to cost probably billions of dollars just for one day of striking. So imagine that long term, if this lasts a week or, even worse, a month, this is going to last well into maybe Christmas or even further than that. So that's really going to have disastrous results, if you can imagine. What's really interesting about this, so you can imagine if you're President Biden, you really don't want this happening, especially so close to the election. They say the typical October surprise, that's the thing that happens in October that really changes the election at last minute. That could be this, because already people don't like the Biden economy. They subconsciously blame Harris for that, although her campaign has been avoiding that actively. So you'd think he'd want to get in there and do something to help his gal Harris to fix this, but he really doesn't want to. Biden is vowing right now not to stop the strike, maybe in an attempt to help unions. He's trying to eye the union vote because Trump is trying to cut into that a little bit. But there's also some speculation that maybe this is a little bit of revenge against Harris because he's just not too happy that she led that coup against him to oust him. And I don't know, maybe this is a little bit of payback because Biden's in a win-win right now. If Harris wins, he can say, I did it. I stepped down. I quote unquote saved democracy. But if she loses, he can say, hey, it should have been me all along. I could have beat Trump. You guys are a bunch of fools. You should have stuck with me. So I don't know what he's doing, but I have a feeling he's being a little cheeky with it. So who's to say, though? Absolutely. Sam, thanks for bringing that update to us, man. This is big stuff, folks. So obviously we're going to keep an eye on it. I'm sure Shana will be talking about it more tomorrow. But Sam, thank you for that. It is kind of a perfect storm of things because we have the election coming up. We've got, actually, folks, just make sure you keep this on your radar too, because during election week, we have one more potential rate cut. The Fed's going to meet again. We'll see if they cut rates again, but that's the week of election week. So we have election week on Tuesday. The next day, the Fed meets. That's going to be a big week that first week in November there, but we'll be keeping an eye on it. Sam, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Hey, folks, before we get to the ag here, let's take a look at the markets really quickly. Though mixed, the markets came out the gate Friday in positive fashion, looking to close the last full week of September last week in positive territory. So by midday, the indices still a little bit mixed. The Dow Jones was cooking, the S&P 500 moderately positive, and the markets did have a chance to close on a 3-week win streak. By late afternoon, the S&P went negative, Dow still up, and that's how they finished on Friday at the closing bell. Dow Jones was up 1/3%, the S&P was down about 1/8, and the NASDAQ down about 0.4%. Pre-markets this morning were all in the negative. They opened much the same way, a little mixed here. The Dow is down almost 0.5%. The S&P 500 is barely in the negative, and the NASDAQ actually just hit the flat line. It was positive, just hit the flat line. So we'll see if these strikes have anything to do with it. We'll see what's going on here. We'll keep you updated on that once again, folks. That strike is supposed to take place, I believe, midnight tonight, Sam, if I'm correct. So that's what we'll be looking at there. This week in the economy, later today, we have a speech from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Tuesday, we'll get the ISM manufacturing and the JOLTS job openings. This is a big jobs week, folks. Wednesday, we'll get ADP employment. Thursday, we get initial jobless claims. We also get the S&P final U.S. services PMI, and we get ISM services. Friday will be a big jobs day. We'll get non-farm payrolls. We'll also get the employment rate coming out on Friday. So that's a little bit what to look at for this week, folks. Okay, we've got the ag report coming up here, and then we'll get to some more financial issues right after that. We'll get to some of your questions, as well as a few more headlines here on this Monday. Make sure if you have not yet given to the FISM year-end campaign, now's time to do it.
For September 30th. Corn climbed to new multi-month highs on Friday. The market was driven by concerns over dryness in Brazil, as well as fund short covering. At the closing bell, December was 4 3/4 cents higher at $4.18 per bushel. Soybean meal led the soybean complex higher on Friday. The rally stemmed from the fact that at least 2 processing plants are shut down as a result of the hurricane. There's also some concerns about crop loss and damage due to heavy rains associated with that hurricane. As a result, November beans were 24 3/4 cents higher at 10.65 3/4. Despite weather concerns in various parts of the world, wheat was lower as weak U.S. export demand and continued aggressive pricing from the Black Sea drove prices lower. At the closing bell, Minneapolis December wheat was 3 1/4 cents lower at 6.08 1/4. Kansas City dropped by 2 1/4 cents, closing at 5.76 3/4. And Chicago was 4 1/4 cents lower at $5.80 per bushel. Cotton futures posted their third consecutive lower close. When the closing bell finally rang, December futures were down 30 points at 72.72. Livestock futures were mixed. December live cattle were 35 cents lower, $184.47 per hundredweight. November feeder cattle rose by 72.5 cents as they closed out the day at $245.70 per hundred. And December lean hog futures dropped 55 cents, closing the week at $73.37 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures closed lower for the fourth time in the past 5 sessions. Friday's close had October futures down another 20 points as they settle at 23.12. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Are you a Christian seeking to align your investments with your faith? I'm Shana Burt, host of the program Financial Issues. During our program, we share valuable information about the financial issues of the day, including how markets and the economy are moving and how public companies are behaving, helping you to make wise decisions with your investments and the money that the Lord has blessed you with. Using biblical standards, we provide you with valuable financial insight based upon Scripture, making it easy for you to invest in a way that aligns with your values. I can assume that most of you have investments in a 401k or IRA, but what I am sure of is most of you have no clue that the companies in your mutual funds may be funding the LGBTQ agenda, pornography, abortion, the list goes on and on. By listening to Financial Issues, you will learn how to get rid of those investments that are dishonoring God.
Become a partner today by simply going to financialissues.org/join. Click the green button to become a partner today.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
So if anybody didn't know, by the way, those disclaimers that we have, that's actually Sam's voice. So you've now put a voice to the face there. Pretty cool stuff. But yeah, it's great to have Sam. We're so delighted to have him more as part of the operation of Financial Issues. So really good stuff there. Hey, folks, there's a lot going on in the country right now. I would be remiss if I forgot to mention the fact that there was a massive storm that hit the southeast, Hurricane Helene, and there is a lot of damage. And I'm sure there is a whole lot of believers who are in trouble right now. So please pray first and foremost for the believers who are impacted, as well as everyone who is impacted. But I think especially as the church, we need to prioritize our fellow believers first. I think that's a good thing. And so praying for the believers impacted. I saw some images actually of Asheville, North Carolina, which we had our retreat there last year, about a year and a half ago. We were down there, just completely flooded out. And so pray for the believers impacted. Pray that that God would spare them. This is why there's such we're so grateful to be able to have the opportunity from time to time to promote ministries that work in these areas. Ministries like Samaritan's Purse. You heard Edward Graham was on the Shana last week. They're going to be on the front lines of this. So please do pray as you think about it there, definitely. So a couple of headlines to get to here, folks, I found very interesting. The first one is the Biden-Harris administration is on track to oversee a massive $1 trillion in improper payments. So the admin it appears $1 trillion of improper payments was made from the time that Biden entered office until when he leaves office. So it was released Thursday of last week. The administration saw it's about $801.4 billion of such payments between 2021 and 2023. This particular group that was doing this report said that barring something unprecedented, the figure will cross $1 trillion by the end of Biden's presidency. So this is basically money that was spent wrongly. So it was paid wrong. It was paid to the wrong person, paid from the wrong person, something like that. The report notes that the tally represents a loss of more than 7,500 tax dollars every second. 7,500 tax dollars a second. Federal government won't disclose the full amount of improper payments until after the November election. According to federal guidelines, an improper payment, again, is disbursement, quote, made by the government to the wrong person in the wrong amount or for the wrong reason. This is just nonsense here. As Dan used to say, folks, we have to remember these people could not manage their own lunch money. That's not hyperbole. That is true. These people don't know how to manage money. They literally are paying too much money to the wrong people or not enough money to the wrong people. This is trillions of taxpayer dollars, though. This is not lunch money. That's what makes this really scary. In some other news here, interesting, an outspoken Democratic strategist, James Carville, urged Kamala Harris last week to stop trying to convince voters that the economy is doing well. He said in a podcast the vice president should distance herself from her and President Biden's economic track record and instead focus on the dangers posed by Trump's economic policies. Now, there was a recent poll that gave Trump a 13-point lead over Harris in terms of who Americans think will do a better job on the economy. I don't think there's any question about that, and this is not a promotion of one candidate or the other, but there is a severe difference between which candidate will do a better job with the economy. I actually believe if Kamala were to do this, if she were to stop trying to convince Americans that the economy is good, it might actually serve her well. She might be able to gain more votes because, let's face it, I think everyone thinks the economy is bad, or else you're living under a rock. On the other hand, I do think there are many who simply don't do their homework and will vote for Kamala Harris just because they don't like Trump, or because they want to see a woman in office, or they want to see a woman of color in office. So a lot of interesting things to talk about, folks. This next month is going to be really important. We're about 37 days or so away from the election. So you're going to want to stay tuned to Financial Issues that whole time. We'll be bringing you up-to-date information on what you need to know. All right, Sam, let's get to one of these partner questions here. We got an interesting one there from Kevin.
Yes, we certainly do. By the way, can I say I really want $7,500 per second?
Yeah,
that'd be
awesome.
Pretty nice.
I know, that'd be great.
So maybe just like one of these seconds, they can send that to me.
Right. Could they accidentally or purposely mess that up and send it to my bank account?
I could be part of that.
That's right.
But yes, we do have a question today from Kevin in Ohio. Right. He says, a follow-up from my comment last week. I think it would be good to try to start a BRI screening advisory committee. Pretty good idea. There are several individual companies that have their own methodologies for determining if a stock is biblical or not. For example, Timothy, Inspire, Second Vote, BRI Institute, etc. However, they don't all agree, and it leaves the consumer confused about who to believe. If there was a single committee made up of members from each of those organizations who then collectively vote on an authoritative BRI list, then everyone could use and trust that source instead of duplicating their efforts. The individual companies could still pick what stocks they want in their own ETFs or portfolios, but at least the screening process would be unified. And that's a really good point. And this is an issue that's come up before. I remember Dan would talk about this from time to time, as we do have core values that we share with BRI, but there are slight differences in how people determine that, even between us and Timothy Plan from time to time. But it's a good question, Seth. So what do you think?
Yeah, it certainly is. Kevin, thanks for that question. I'll say a few things about it. And Sam, I agree with you completely there. I think there's all those things to consider with this. Here's what I'd say for Kevin. While it can be tough when BRI screeners don't agree on a stock, I would love it if all of these screeners agreed. I think this is where the do-it-yourself strategy, Kevin, can really come in for your benefit. This can really help you here. So let's say, for example, Timothy disagrees with Inspire. It may be time for you, Kevin, as the biblically responsible investor with wisdom and with common sense, to do your own research, follow your conscience, and make a decision one way or the other. Now, if you're following Timothy Plan, Inspire, we have a general understanding that all of these companies, they love Christ, they're trying to do their best. So it wouldn't be sinful if you went one way or the other. This is more a question of kind of conscience and wisdom and doing your own research and making a decision in the end. For me, Kevin, it kind of reminds me similarly of church denominations, honestly. I wish we could all be one big denomination. I really do. I think that'd be great. But history has proven that that's not the way it is. In glory, we will all be truly united, absolutely. But as we can see, the visible church, there's different denominations. I'll give you an example. I identify as a Baptist. I'm a Baptist because I believe the Bible's definition of believer's baptism. That's my personal, that's my personal spiritual conviction. I believe that the Bible teaches believers baptism, but I have many dear friends who are Presbyterians, conservative Presbyterians. They baptize babies, but they have wonderful theology of salvation and God's sovereignty and a firm belief on God's word and an emphasis on the ancient creeds. And we disagree on the baptism question, but we agree on those other things. And I would never say that brother, because I think they get baptism wrong, that they're all of a sudden not a Christian. I think they need to fix their theology, but that's not a question of are you a Christian or not. We can stand united in Christ. The reality is I'd love to be perfectly unified with them, but in a sinful world that's not going to happen. But I will celebrate and fight alongside my Presbyterian brothers and my conservative Methodist brothers and even Roman Catholic brothers to a degree and my non-denominational brothers and my Assemblies of God brothers in the fights that need to be fought, knowing that we're united in Christ first and foremost. Even though we may disagree on certain aspects, we're all going to have a seat. If we are covered by the blood of Christ, our name's written in the book of life, we're all having a seat at that marriage supper of the Lamb. Praise God. I had to make a decision based on my conscience as to what I thought was best. And I'd encourage you to do the same. When it comes to BRI screening, many of these BRI companies are good. Now, you have to consider this. This is something I want to say very importantly for you, so listen closely, Kevin. We at the ministry trust the Timothy Plan most. We at the ministry, FISM, we trust Timothy. I personally trust Timothy Plan the most as well. Why? Because they're family. We know them. We've known them for 25 years. They know us. We've chosen to enter into a relationship with them for a very long time. We've vetted them. Dan vetted them. We have re-vetted them. We see no reason to part ways with them. We see no reason to not promote them. We know Timothy. We trust Timothy. So I would tell you that Timothy Plan is the best of those simply because I know them. I'm sure those other ones might be great, but in the same way that I trust my own pastor more than I would trust a celebrity pastor or even someone else's pastor down the street because I know him, he knows me, he loves my children, he picks up Josiah and holds him every Sunday. Josiah loves to see him. It's kind of that same idea there. So I would tell you, do your own research. If you're stuck and you need a tiebreaker of sorts, the tiebreaker would go to Timothy. That would be my opinion because we know Timothy, we love Timothy, we absolutely understand that they're going to be committed, sold out, convicted as we are as well in BRI. Now, I believe, Kevin, one more thing, that when it comes to BRI screening, and this is where we'll have to close here, some level of diversity in choosing could actually be to your benefit. Sorry to use a liberal word there, diversity, but I actually think it can be used for good, and this could be one of those here. The inverse of that is true as well, that it might not be most beneficial for you to have one governing body like a United Nations of BRI screening of sorts. It's great in practice maybe, but not in actuality. I think when it comes to the idea of one governing body, we have to remember that it's always made up of people with agendas, and sometimes the agendas are not always best, and sometimes those agendas change. There's a level of built-in accountability, Kevin, that comes with each BRI screening group having its own governing rules, and then leaving that up to the consumer to be able to choose. There's actually built-in accountability there. And so it keeps Timothy making sure that they want to do their best. And it keeps Inspire making sure that they want to do their best. And Second Vote and those other ones. And so I believe it allows for the do-it-yourselfers like us to have the freedom to choose which one's best for us. And I think it's a really good thing. And so I'd encourage you, that's something to be thankful for. I would take advantage of the freedom you have with multiple screening options. Again, if you're asking for our opinion, I would tell you lean towards Timothy Plan because we know them and love them and we know that they're going to do a great job for you. Kevin, it's a good question, man. I really appreciate that. I think you're thinking right here. I would, encourage you to think about it as a really good thing that there's not that governing body, that you have the freedom to be able to look at these different screening companies and trust that they're following Christ and they're doing their best. So I hope that's helpful for you, brother. I appreciate it. It's a busy show today, folks. Grateful for all of you. Thank you again. If you have not gotten the chance to donate to our ministry, now is the day to do it. You have till midnight tonight to donate for our fiscal year campaign. Financialissues.org/impact. Thank you all so much for your love and support, your donations, and for joining us on the show today. Remember, it is all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.